Hi everyone, this is Tanya from Flying Dog Studio. Thanks so much for joining me for part 4 of my Derwent Inktense Watercolor Experiment. As you can see in this video, we are starting with the leaves and we are actually finishing with the leaves. In our last video, we worked entirely on the background, and in this one, we are not going to work on that background anymore. We are only going to be working on the leaves. I am going to be using the same colors that I've used previously, but what we're doing a little bit differently, and some of you actually mentioned this in the comments, that this is how you work with these, and it is an excellent idea. I am going to be mixing the colors right on the leaves. I'm not going to be putting down color and then adding water and letting it dry. I'm putting down all the color I need on the leaves. As you can see on this one, I've picked up 3. I'll be picking up a 4th color for the shadow at the end, putting all of those down, and then coming back and adding the water on top. And that is, as some of you suggested, a wonderful way for working with this particular tool. So I am going to be picking up my dark color. I'm looking for it. I have them all of them there, but I had not picked it out. So we're going to be adding in the dark color right there to give us a little bit of that definition between those two leaves that are coming together. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, 2, or 3, I am going to link those down below, along with the video where I did the swatching of all of these colors when I opened up my Derwent pencils straight out of the box, and we swatched all of those colors together. So I'm going to put all of that down below. And I wanted you to notice on this that when we started with this cold press paper, that you could really see the texture in the background. You could really see it in the leaves. And if you'll notice that the background, now that it has dried, you can kind of see that texture, but it's not as evident. And that's because we have built up all of that color. So I am now just going to keep working with this, and you will see that on the leaves, that once I add that color on, and this one's wet. When it dries, of course, it dries a little bit lighter, but once it dries, you're going to see that the textured paper from that cold press is not quite as evident. And we're just going to keep working with this. I am going to dry between the leaves, and just so I can keep this going, I'm not going to show you that whole process, but that was my hair dryer I wanted you to see. I am going to dry between all the leaves, and I'm just going to keep adding these colors on, and I'll come back in a few minutes and talk a little bit more about the process. I actually want to hop back on quickly, and then I'll let you watch me color, but I did want to talk about my color choices on this. I know that went by quickly. I do speed up my videos because I don't want you to have to sit and watch me color for hours on end. So the dark color that I am using for shadows is bark. I do not use black. I guess I'm more like an impressionist in that regards. I like to use other colors to achieve shadows and to achieve my dark shades, and not use black. That I don't want to use that as a crutch when I'm choosing my palette. So the only time I've actually used black is when I swatch these colors. You'll not see me use black no matter what medium I'm using. If I do use it, it's a specific use. It's not to create a shadow. It's always good to use something other than black. It creates more of an interest. It actually creates more of a depth than just using black. Black can really flatten things out. So I just wanted to throw that in there so you wouldn't think I was using black. I'm actually using bark. So now I'm going to hop off and you can watch me color. You will notice on some of these leaves that I have patches of colors, almost like stripes. These leaves were not actually striped. For me, this is an indicator of where I want to add in the shadows, which will come at the very end. And the shadows are super dark, sort of like the inside of that second leaf that we colored. And I'm using the red as sort of a base for that, so I'll know where all of those dark shadows are going to come in. So you'll see that in play as we get to the very end of the video. If you have been following along with this project and have been taking a look at the comments, you may have noticed that there has been discussion about whether or not these are watercolor pencils. According to the Derwent box that they came in, Derwent calls them watercolor ink pencils. So they are ink pencils. They are ink. They are not, and I can't remember if it's our first video or the second one. We have someone makes a comment, and thank you so much for putting that in about the difference between dyes and pigments. And then I looked some stuff up because, well, that's interesting. So I put some more stuff down there for us to read about. But this little section right here proves how much ink these are, and not just regular watercolor pencils. And someone else commented that if you're going to try watercolor pencils, that you should do the, like, I'm using air quotes, normal watercolor pencils, because these are ink and they do, as someone else mentioned, stain the paper, and they're very strong. And to prove that, this little section right here, I have put color on this particular leaf, and it's a very dark red. We have several colors in there making that particular shade. And when I'm reaching over, I'm just getting water on my brush, and so I have water and I've touched that ink, but I need it right over here on this leaf where I've put no color down, but look how much is in my brush. So I'm able to come over and paint on that one as well. I don't know if any of you have ever used liquid watercolors, but these work like liquid watercolors, and I'm not sure the makeup of liquid watercolors as compared to these Derwent Inktense watercolor pencils, but I know from working with liquid watercolor, and I've worked with it with kids before, I'm talking kindergarten age even, and if they spill it, it gets everywhere. And we had white tables, so we had beautiful white tables when we would get done using liquid watercolors. So they do stain, so do be careful if you have a surface that, this was an old surface for me, so it didn't matter. And did get some off on the table, but I believe all the spots that you're seeing on there are old things that my daughter and I have done. So they do stain the paper though. So once it's down, and that's what I like about them, because it allows me to layer on top. But I did want to point that out, that they are ink. We have discussed that. If you are not looking at the comments in these videos, you're missing out on some good information. So I encourage you to go back, not only watch the videos, but take a look at those comments. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm putting all of the colors down that I'm going to need on these leaves, and then I'm coming back and putting water on the entire thing. But if you are going to do that, the best thing to do is once you get the color down, you start putting the water on, start in those lighter areas so that you're not pushing your dark into the light, unless you're wanting to push dark color down into the light color and mix them all together. So you'll see I'm starting on the yellow-green side, and I'm continually getting some fresh water to move stuff around. And I'm a paper flipper. I like to flip my paper and work from one end to the next, and now I'm pushing that color toward the dark end so that don't bring it down and mix everything together. There are some areas where I do want it mixed, so you'll see me bring that down because I don't want a hard edge. I want my colors to blend. I don't want them to be juxtapositioned. I don't want them side by side. I want them to blend on this particular leaf. So you will see me bring it down a little bit, but if you're going to mix the colors like this and you have a light area, start with that light area and put your water down, and then work toward the dark areas. So we are reaching the final stretch, and as I said, I'm going to be putting all of the shadows on at this point, and this is where the striped leaves came into play, and you will see that right now because I'm going straight to those red areas and using that as my base and putting down the blue and then that beautiful purple on top, and those mix very well to make the shades on this sassafras tree. And again, if you've never seen a sassafras tree, they don't just have the long, narrow leaves on the tree. They also have leaves that look almost like oak leaves. And the colors on the tree will vary. Not all of the leaves, for instance, the yellow-green leaf there at the top, it will not necessarily turn those wonderful red shades and orange shades. It will just turn sort of yellow-brown, and then that will be it for that leaf. So the sun was setting, and we have some very sharp, hard colors on here for the shadows, and so these colors are going to be juxtapositioned. In the leaf above with the yellow-green, we just talked about how we didn't want those colors to be juxtaposition. We wanted to blend. On this particular part, adding these shadows in, I did want those to stand out. I did want them to have an edge. There is only one right up at the very top that I kind of blend out that did not have an edge, but everything else on the shadows did have an edge. And I'm putting these in last because I wanted them to be dominant. They were dominant in person, and I wanted those to be strong colors. So we'll go ahead and finish this up, and then we'll compare it to where we started at the beginning, and we'll talk about how that changed the whole composition. just a few final strokes here, and what you are going to see in just a moment when we have a split screen of the two pieces is that when we started, our leaves were very light, our background was very dark. We have not touched the background, we've only touched the leaves, and you're going to see how the background just really got a bit lighter on us from adding in all of the dark colors. So thank you so much for following along. I hope you had a good time. I know I had a good time, and I enjoyed getting to meet some of you in the comments, so keep those comments coming. And again, if you have any questions, any comments, put those down below. If I can't answer it, maybe somebody else can. Thanks so much, and I will see you in the next one.